Hey guys, I'm Walt. I'm talking about comics, and I'm back. It took a while. I'm really sorry for the long break. So there was a lot of stuff going on. I won't get into it. I will tell you about the stuff that is relevant to you. Namely, you probably know that I sold some stuff on eBay. I still do it. And regarding that, I was thinking all the time, how can I, not necessarily capitalize on this channel because I know it's hard to do, but how can I get a little bit of money out of it so that the whole time that goes into it pays off a little bit, because it's sometimes hard to justify investing all those hours without getting anything out of it, especially if you're like a freelancer like me. So you have to be really careful about your time and how you you know dispose it on your different projects. However, so I have now this thing going on. It's I would say like a little comic shop on eBay where I sell hardcover editions, really nice special editions, all new and sealed. Also, still part of my collection. And but really, regarding the omni-buy editions and the hardcovers, I know a lot of you guys do buy them. If you want to support this channel, and if you're living in Europe, especially in Germany, you might want to check it out and help me a little bit. And it's also good for you because the prices are really good, and it's all shipped with a lot of care and love. Yeah, maybe you will check it out. I will put a link in the description. But that's it for the advertisement part. Let's move to comics. I have been quite out of the loop regarding single issues for quite a while. But yeah, I just went to my comic shop yesterday, and look at this. This is only a part of it. Those are only like first issues here. Almost. A few non-first issues I will talk about later. And yeah, without further ado, let's just start it. So first we have a lot of indie books that I sampled. First up is IDW's Night Owl Society by two creators I wasn't aware of before, James Van House and Pius Beck. It's it's a book about young kids, high school kids maybe, who want to avenge the death of a beloved person, and they practically know who's responsible for it, and they want to punish this person. And the person who's responsible for it, there is a little reveal towards the end of the book. I won't tell you what it is, but yeah, well, the first issue is mostly like a setup, how the group assembles, the different characters. This feels a little bit like a superhero book without superpowers. Maybe you were one of those kids, I know that I was, who liked to play detective when they were little, and this is what those kids are trying to do. The art is nice. It's rough. It's not super special, but it's doing the job. But regarding the writing, I would say it's just not enough to ape Tarantino dialogue, and there is a lot of dialogue going on here. You can see it here. It's very talky and very wordy, and it's this kind of like offbeat humor which you will find in every second book nowadays, which is not very funny. Everyone's a little bit cynical and detached and cool, and I don't know. It wasn't for me. I don't think it's something you need to read. Next up, Scout Comics. Scout Comics is a real indie. Like they started last year, and I've read like one or two books by them, and you can see that it's some people's first comics, first creating of comics, and it's not bad. The idea is somehow interesting. It's a I think it will merge into a post-apocalyptic story about a group of people who have to survive a certain event, namely a solar flare hitting the Earth, and stuff will happen. Probably electricity will not work anymore and stuff like that. So, but what is happening here in the first issue, and this is a bit problematic, is that we only learn of this whole cast. We get to know the cast, and it's a big cast, and it's not easy to differentiate who's who and what's the purpose of this and what's the motivation of this guy, and it doesn't feel organical. Like from a story perspective, we don't know what the story is. We just get introduced to characters. The dialogue is good, and the writing is not bad, but it doesn't serve any purpose. So we have a big cast and basically nothing happening, and this is like dead on arrival, I would say, because nowadays with all those number ones and like 500 to 600 books every month competing for attention, you really need to hook your readers into your story. They have to be like super curious about the next issue, and I wasn't, so it's a pass for me. Aside from that, the art is a bit rough, but I don't want to be too hard on those guys because, like I said, this is really real underground comics in a way. So I can forgive some rough art or some rough things about story, but if I'm not getting hooked, I don't come back. All right, next up we have Image. I will move this a little bit further because I have some other Image book to talk about. We have another pretty, I don't want to say amateurish, but it is comic. It's by Alterna Comics. Maybe you've read about those guys. They want to make newspaper comics or comics printed on newspaper a thing again. And it's kind of cool because it's only $150, which is incredibly cheap. So you can't do no wrong giving this a shot. I really like the cover, it's reminiscent of the 80s Marvel covers, and it's really obvious. I would say it's basically ripped off from those, and it's fun. It's not bad. I really like the printing on newspaper. I really dig, for example, paperbacks who are printed on this old, more like wooden paper. I don't know, probably just childhood memories. And the story here, you can see the art is okay. I mean, it's doing its job. And the story is 3 people go into the woods. And yeah, exactly, that's it. Again, people having dialogues, talking about nonsense, trying to be funny, but nobody cares. At least I didn't care. And, then something happens, like always, when people go into the woods, especially at nights. And it's 3 people. So you can guess that, I think it was Sartre who said, with 3, the drama begins. So something will happen, but you need to pick up the next issue to find out. Thing is, I can really recommend it, even for $150. It's still the time that you invest into it. It's not worth it. And it's not to say that real underground comics can't be exceptional, because this one here was. It's called Slasher, and it's by Charles Forsman. Never heard of this guy before. It's by Floating World Comics, which again, I never heard of this publisher before. And I just ordered it basically because I like the cover. And it's about a serial killer. But it's you can see some of the art, which doesn't look spectacular, but believe me, it's really good. It hits all the nuances, the psychological ones. And It's really creepy, and yeah, it's just dense, and the characters are super believable. They're really unique. You're completely hooked. You want to find out more. The drama, the tension, it's all there, and I was very, very impressed by it. I will definitely continue reading it, and if you can, if you still can get it somewhere, I would recommend you to check it out. It's really very special and very, you know, you always want something unique out of your comics. You don't want to read the thousandth serial killer story because it's boring. So yeah, more unique comics, and this. Oh, I have now two really, really unique comics coming up. One of those is by Aftershock. It's called World Reader, and I was absolutely psyched about this one. And yeah, it has mainly to do with the artwork. But let me tell you a little bit about the story. It's about a group of astronauts who are trying to find out what happened on a certain planet to the civilization which lived there before but is now extinct. And one of those astronauts has a very special ability. She can talk to ghosts in a way, so she can find out what happened in this world. And the thing is, it's written by Jeff Loveness. You might know him from Marvel Comics. He's doing Nova over at Marvel Comics, and is drawn, inked, and colored by Juan Do. And yeah, look at this. No words needed. This is, I mean, you're in this world. Look at this. This is how this woman, the world reader, is exploring the past of this planet. And you wander with her and through Juan Do's art into this fantastic, highly atmospherical realm. And it's so good. I really got goosebumps because it's so beautiful. The coloring is also very intense. Feels alien, but also like really, you know, touching. Everything helps the story here, and I was completely blown away. It's really, really good. I'm glad that I subscribed to it just based on the cover, because I thought, okay, World Reader, weird enough, and the cover is so beautiful. This will be good, and it is. Next up, Godshaper. This is difficult to explain. It's by Simon Spurrier. You might know him from X Legacy or X-Men Legacy. And what did he do? I think he wrote, yes, Crossed, Wish You Were Here, and some other stuff. And it's drawn and I think colored by Jonas Goonface. And again, a fantastic cover. And the cover is kind of hinting that at the uniqueness of the story again. This is a very unusual book. I will try to explain it to you. So it's about this person here. He's a Godshaper. In his society, all things related to physics have stopped working in the late 50s. For whatever reason, it's never explained, but it's not important. You just have to buy into this premise of the world. And it got replaced, everything physical related or materialist related got replaced with something metaphysical. Namely gods. Every person has his or her own god. They're carrying them around it looks a little bit like this here. You know, they're like little goblins sitting on your shoulder or wherever, and it's a little bit, you know, uh, how can I to what can I compare it? I mean, there are all those monsters games where you have those monsters and you let them fight against other monsters, and if they win because they're more powerful, they get points from this other monster. And this is how this society works. If your god is powerful, he or it will become even more powerful because it will succeed at competing with others. So it's an obvious metaphor for capitalism, and you know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are staying poor. And this guy is not even poor. He's like an outcast because he doesn't have an own god. 1 in 10,000 people don't have gods, and they called shapers because their ability is to they can redesign basically the gods of others. So in a way, they don't get any recognition because you don't have no god, you don't get no props, and they're still needed because those people need the shapers to redesign their gods, add different abilities, whatever. So yes, I know it sounds very complicated, and I could go on and on because this world is not finished yet. Our main character is also a rock star involved in a subculture called Cantique, and there are different characters, but I really don't want to spend now an hour on one comic. I just want to tell you that I know it sounds weird and my explanation wasn't the best, but this was one very intense reading in which characterization, storytelling, world building, and you know, all the nuances that make a comic or just a piece of literature interesting came together in one reading experience. And you turn the last few pages and you're like, wow, I totally want to find out what goes on in this world and what will happen to those characters and how this will continue. And it's a good thing because this is a new ongoing, and I urge you to check it out. It's by Boom Comics, so no gigantic print run. If you want to check it out, please buy it. Don't sample it online. Just go and buy it because those people really need every comic to sell and to make money so that they can continue. And this is one of the best and most intriguing and most unique first issues. Also one of the most beautiful ones that I've read in a while. Godshaper. All right, Exo Manowar number 2. I really enjoyed number 1, which came out roughly 1 month ago. And yeah, it's, if you know XO, this is kind of a soft relaunch in a way. They don't say that the thing that went on before in the 50 issues before that doesn't count, but they're really reshaping, reshaping the character and his world and what he's about, and they're putting him into space where the first series, or better said the second series, which got launched in 2012, started. But it feels like this will stay in space a bit longer. And if I have to characterize it, I would say, yeah, it's basically Conan in space. And XO always had this barbarian in a battle suit kind of thing, but in here they're really going for the, you know, the orc like characters and the fantasy world building and everything. So yeah, it's a fantasy book with a little bit of technology in it, and it's cool. I enjoyed it. I will stay with it for at least another issue because I bought into this thing where you could order the first 3 issues at once for some additional bonus material, which is also really interesting. But I will have to see if I will stick with it after that, because you know, Conan, I like Conan, but do I need to read it on a monthly basis? Not necessarily. Next up, I have two comics by a new publisher, Vault Comics, and they're both really, for a new publisher, this looks very slick. Look at this, really nice cardboard cover on both, and really, really good art and coloring. So this looks very professional. And I'm not sure, I might have read something about Vault that it's like it's someone from from inside the industry who spawned his own little imprint. Colossi is about, if you've read No Mercy by Alex de Campi over at Image, it's kind of similar in that it's a bus, this time a flying bus, going through a wormhole, and it lands in a parallel dimension. And in this dimension, everything is super big. Wow, surprise, never heard of this concept before. So the people are super small, but the world is super big. Yeah, it's Gulliver's Travel reversed, and it's kind of a bit too cliche, you know. The little people who have to flee from the cat, and the little people who have to flee from the bird, and I guess I've read all of this before, and it started really nice, and it was really intriguing and interesting and really fast paced, but then they arrive in this world, and you know, all these cliches start to happen. I don't really need to read this. I might check it out again if it comes out in trade, but not on a monthly basis. Failsafe, the next one by Vault Comics. I didn't read the creators, mainly because they're unknown, so forget it. It's not a buying argument. They're fairly unknown. I might have read again about Failsafe that it was planned at a different publisher, but didn't get released there, and now it's at Vault. Again, it's professionally done. The art, not my favorite kind of art, but it's well done. But the problem here is this is very much a world building exercise. So yes, there are some people in it, but it's obvious the writers don't really care about those characters or any kind of story. They want to tell us or show us that they've read some article in Wired or whatever about the future, and that they read another article, and then they merged those articles into one world that they made up here. And yeah, it's a political thriller, you could call it that, about a government program operating on superpowered humans. Also, we've read a few of those stories before, and yeah, there's nothing unique about it, and I'm really sorry to say it's a pass. Okay, another new publisher, at least I wasn't aware of it. It's Lionforge Comics, and they have a new imprint in their line, which is Catalyst Prime, which is a new universe, which is, I think it was created by Joe Casey, or I don't really know. There, you can read it up on the net, and well, let me say that I had some reservations going into it, because as much as I really enjoy reading new superhero concepts, maybe because I read something online on it, and it was like, yeah, and this will be different, and the thing that is different about it will be like a very diverse cast and whatever, and I'm like, okay, so it's like an exercise in being politically correct. I don't want to read. I don't want to be educated. I just want to be entertained. But still, you know, great creators involved, like Priest, who I really love, So I was like, okay, I will give it a shot, and I was pleasantly surprised. Actually, it's a pretty good story. And yeah, this is the Free Comic Book Day intro where the main event is happening. So there is a big event, a little bit like the new universe at Marvel, where some cosmic event is happening and people get superpowers. And yeah, that's it basically. It's not super original. This is what I was thinking. I was like, damn, I mean, this is the idea that Marvel guys had like 30 years ago. Couldn't people who invent a new super universe come up with something more interesting? Something more, you know, something crazier maybe. But no, they can't. And you have to accept it, and really in the end it's not that important. Because it's just the first, it's just the origin of the whole thing. Basically, they get superpowers. This is all you need to know. And I really enjoyed the first issue, like the free issue. I think it's written by Priest mainly, and yeah, Priest just has a great talent at writing characters. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading this. So I had high hopes then afterwards for Noble, and they weren't disappointed. It was an enjoyable comic. It was a very straightforward one. So it's about this guy who also was part of this event, and now 1 year later, he's living under a new identity somewhere else. I think in Mexico or so, and he has completely forgotten that he has a wife and he has a child, and he's haunted by an agency or some kind of some kind of group employed by the government. They want to bring him in, and yeah, he's resisting. That's it. It's just an action comic, but it's really well done. The art is really nicely. The choreography is really, really good, and you can see it here. It's just like boom, bash, shoot, whatever. It's fun, and I enjoyed reading it. And I'm thinking about getting at least another issue, just to know where this is going. But I think it will be like a family book, you know, in a way, with a guy who can't remember his past and his family, and who has to cope with the fact that he's changed now. So a good start, I would say, for Catalyst Comics, and now I'm really looking forward to getting more of their offerings. Next up, Plastic by Image Comics, which is really easy to overlook. It's super small only here, and I don't know if this is clever, because this kind of comic really sells on the Image brand, and Image for me stands more and more for a kind of a horror genre mix. It's always like horror mixed with something else, and here it's just like, you know, serial killer, more of the serial killer cliches, but done in a very how could I put it? The craftsmanship that goes into it is very high, but you know, it's still average if it's boring. It's not boring, but if it doesn't create any kind of excitement, and I don't really have any expectations. You go into this comic, and after a few pages, you know, yeah, you can see it. This guy is weird, and he can do really bad stuff to people, really gory and bad stuff, and he gets a job offer by a mafia kind guy. I'm bored already, like talking about it, and it's a pity, because you can see that those guys can produce a really good comic. It's well drawn, it's very well executed, but the main story is boring. All right. Yeah, again, another image book which continues this tradition. It's by Cullen Bunn. I don't know. I think I've never read anything by Cullen Bunn where I was like, wow, this is good. It's always like, okay, it's good. And it starts out really interestingly. This guy who's having this kind of like visions, and then he's taken to a hypnotist, and this hypnotist lets him relive stuff from his past lives, and yeah, this is what the comic will deal with. That he has to explore something from his past lives, so he can deal with it in the present. And until then, he's having those weird visions all the time. Not for me. It's a horror book again, mixed with a little bit of supernatural psychology, I guess, and it's well done, but non-interesting. Redneck by the new superstar writer. What's his name? Something Coates. Danny Cates, drawn by Lisandro Esteran, and coloring by D. Cuniff. And it's a great cover. I really like it. It's like, bam, straight in your face. I like this. And it's also really well written. And you could think of it like, what's this book by Aaron with bastards in its name? You know what I mean. It made me also think a little bit about, again, Aaron, a little bit of Sculpt in it, a little bit of True Blood, the TV show, and you basically get where this is heading. It's like rednecks vampires. It's a family of vampires, and the family part of it is written quite well, I think. It's just the vampire stuff that I'm not interested in. So, yeah, should you read it? Yeah, give it a shot, because it's out of this little image bunch, this was one of the best. But it's not special. It's not special, and you need special. You can see like this gigantic stack is only the stack of 5 weeks of new #1 issues. I mean, it's insane, and the level of quality is right now is so high that yeah, you get really picky. Another image book, another #1 is Eternal Empire. It's by Sarah Vaughan and Jonathan Luna. The Luna brothers have made some really good comics in the past. For example, Girls, The Sword. What else? The last one. What was the name? I really like the last one. It's not here. What? Alex and Ada. I really enjoyed this series, and this one was also pretty cool. I liked it. I'm not a big fan of fantasy books, so I was like, ugh. When I read the first few pages, I was like, oh, not for me. But you know, this super minimalistic graphical artwork always gets me for whatever reason. I know it's not really good in a artistic way, but I don't know. It gets to me. Something about it makes it more emotional. Like, yeah, it's hard to explain. I can't explain it. I'm trying to find a reason in my head, and there's nothing there. So what is it about? Yeah, well, what all fantasy is about. It's about a kingdom and a bad empress and people who are suppressed. And this one girl here, I don't know her name, I forgot it. I don't know if she even has one. She has all those visions all the time of 3 suns. This is a planet where which has 3 suns. I guess it's pretty complicated because then how does it spin? I don't quite get it. But whatever. I don't want to get into the physical aspect of it. It's a really dense atmosphere. You get sucked in like into a good film, yeah, I really want to continue reading it. I probably won't get it on a monthly basis, but I will definitely get the paperback. It has all that a number 1 issue needs: a great setup, an interesting character, and an interesting question towards the end. So you should definitely give it a shot. Alright, now we have some Marvel comic books, which is surprisingly enough, that I don't read a lot of Marvel stuff, but who does nowadays? I mean, they have some problems. First up is Weapon X. Look at it, like this cover really screams at you like, I'm from the 90s, woo! And yeah, it's 90s kind of action comics, but done pretty well, I have to say. It was fun. It was fun reading it. It's by 2 Gregs. Greg Pak is the writer and Greg Land is the artist. And I know a lot of you are saying like, oh, Greg Land, I hate him, blah, blah, blah. But come on, look at this. This guy can do really good, dynamic comic pages. So I was surprised because, of course, I'm the same, like, oh, he's tracing porn stars into Marvel Comics. I don't like him. But then, look at this. It's a very cinematic and very straightforward and very kinetic storytelling here. It was fun. I finished it like in, I don't know, 3.5 to 4 minutes. But I had fun those 4 minutes. I just don't think I can spend $4 every 2 weeks for 4 minutes of entertainment. I'm sorry, Marvel. But yeah, it's cool. Not so much Nick Fury #1, which is, I don't know what it is, frankly. It's written by James Robinson with art by I just can't find the name. His second name is Echo. So yeah, I will show you a little bit of the art because it's very much a show of graphical. It's a graphical homage to the work Steranko did back in the 60s on Nick Fury. It's famous for the way the pages were designed and everything, and the psychedelic coloring and all that stuff. And what they did is like, okay, cool, let's do that in a somewhat new way, but the story is basically non-existent. And I enjoyed the first few pages and I was like, wow, crazy. But then every fucking page is like this, and double page spreads all the time, and the pages are also like, it's a bit too loud all the time. There is no it's just like one rush of emotions while reading it, and yeah, I don't know, it didn't flow at all. It didn't flow. It's like all tableaus you look at, and yeah, it's just wasted money. All right, next up, another X book, which I had big expectations, might be a bit too much, but Jean Grey #1, I really wanted it to be good. Let's put it that way, and I was totally you know, Dennis Hopeless wrote Spider-Woman, and what I've read of it, I really enjoyed. But I think I enjoyed the fact that Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, right? She was a mother, so it was a different character than the nowadays new cliche Marvel character of the sassy young girl. I really can't take this no more. It's like it was funny when it started, like with Kate Bishop in Hawkeye and stuff, but now like every new or semi-new character which gets introduced is like this millennial brat who's like cynical and has this inner monologue working all the time, and is super detached and says totally all the time, and okay, maybe I'm just a old fart, could be, and is true. But you know, if you wanna have a more diverse cast, and if you think like white old men are super boring, which is true, then please don't introduce a new cliche and reproduce it all the time. Please try to be a bit more original. And Jean Grey could have been this original take because she is from the past. So she's like a Captain America who has to come to terms with the fact that she's now in an era where young girls behave completely differently from the 60s. So this would have been a great spin for this book. Like, you know, she could be like this super awkward, conservative little girl who has to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, well, the world moved on. So how do I cope with it? But no, she's from the 60s or the 50s. I don't know where they're coming from. Early 60s. But she's also using the same language as young people do today, and it doesn't make any sense, and yeah, it was a disappointment. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm ranting too much today. It's just like all those weeks of not doing videos, and now I'm overdoing it a bit. Alright, next up is Ben Reilly, The Scarlet Spider. It's by an old white man. This is why I enjoy it. It's by Peter David. And Peter David and Mark Bagley, like two old white men who are doing an alternative Spider-Man who's called Ben Reilly. I'm not an expert on Ben Reilly. Please look it up online. I just finished Clone Conspiracy and didn't really understand it. But I can tell you that he's a clone. That's all I can tell you. And that he's kind of an asshole. And he's kind of deranged too. So, and he also has like this really fucked up face with all the bruises and now that I'm saying it, it's obvious. It's Deadpool version of Spider-Man, basically. So yeah, it's Spider Deadpool, and yeah, Ben Reilly is trying to do the right thing, but he's still an asshole, so he's always in between these things, and he has hallucinations and sees people talking to him, and basically he just wants to have Peter Parker's life. That's his aim, and for doing that he knows that he has to be a superhero and he has to be a good guy, but he's not really a good guy. And yeah, Peter David is just a master, and it's just an enjoyable read. It's nothing super exceptional, but the characters have a voice, the dialogues are funny, the people are, you know, and the funny is different with different characters. It's not the same, you know, all the people talking in the same voices. He's just a good writer, I guess. And Bagley is like a veteran. He did, I don't know how many issues of Amazing Spider-Man. He then moved to Ultimate Spider-Man with Brian Michael Bendis, and they did like, I don't know, 100 issue run or so. And now he's back at this new Spider guy, and I really hope this sells well because I had a lot of fun reading it. Back. Okay, now we move to DC Comics. Okay, only 5 comics left. First up from the Young Animal line, Buck, The Adventures of Forager. And, well, it's Mike Allred writing with his brother Lee, and his wife Laura is coloring it, so it's a family project. And yeah, I love his art. I really enjoy it. Not so much in this one. I don't know what it is. I think because it's in a way claustrophobic. It's everything is inside, and the pages are also a little bit overfilled with too many things happening at the same time. So it doesn't really flow that well. But there are some funny ideas in it. I will give it that. And I think for fans of Kirby's Young Gods, and later on Sandman, Kirby's Sandman has an appearance. It's basically an homage issue to the Kirby side of the DC universe, and there are some really beautiful pages. Okay, true, it's still good art, but the story, I don't know. He's having a nightmare, and he can wake up from the nightmare, and then Sandman shows up, and then he wakes up, but it's still the same nightmare. I don't know. I didn't get it. It was pretty boring, but the art was nice. So I won't get the next issue. And I would just love to, it reminded me that there was a time where Peter Milligan and Michael Allred did Ecstatics, and this was a great time. Alright, then we have a little bit of DC Rebirth action here. The Button. It's kind of a strange title for like a super important crossover, The Button. But we know what the button is. It's not like a button, it's the smiley button. Which is now 1 year later, 1 year after the one-shot, the DC Rebirth one-shot got released. Everyone's still trying to figure out what this button is about. And I'm a bit cynical because, all the readers are like, we know what the button is. We know it. Please, let's get to it. But everyone's like, no, wait, let's try and think about it. Let's go into this direction. This guy told me that, and you're like all the time like, please bring Dr. Manhattan into the picture, finally. So this is how I felt about it, especially about the Flash. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Joshua Williamson's writing on the Flash. I enjoyed the Batman issue because it's very well drawn by Mr. Fabek. I don't know who Mr. Fabek is. He's doing this new DC house style, which is a bit dark and heavy on inks, and I really like it, I have to say. I like the house style. And they have this thing here, which is really clever. I have to give it to Tom King. He's like this clever guy. So Batman calls Flash, and Flash says, yeah, I'll be there in 60 seconds or in a minute. And then we have like a countdown here. Reverse Flash shows up, spoiler alarm, and there's a fight with Batman. And you can see here the countdown, the seconds are counted down. Sometimes, because it's Reverse Flash, when he hits him, it's like the same second it's like 3 times, and it's the 9-panel grid with a clock on it, so you can really see how the time moves. Sometimes it's slowing down, sometimes it's picking up speed, so it's pretty clever, like I said. Not necessarily like a fantastic story or anything, but the formal side of it, the way it's told, is really, really good. So yeah, it was fun. it was great fun. And then I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Again, stuff is happening. The button, still not revealed what's going on with the button. I picked up the second one, and then it's like Flash, and it's super wordy. A lot of inner monologue and a lot of recap again. This is like the Williamson trademark of like every page gets recapped. The whole thing about his mother, and I'm like, please, please show me what's happening now. Don't tell me about the past all the time. So yeah, it got really, really slowed down here, and the art is okay, but yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm basically out of this main continuity DC Rebirth thing anyway, but I really enjoyed the Batman issue. Another Batman book here, Batman meets the Shadow, who is basically his grandfather. You know, like the Batman was heavily influenced by the Shadow, who back then wasn't a comic yet, it was a pulp magazine, but the whole gritty and dark and brutal aspect of the Shadow, a lot of it went into Batman, into the creation of Batman, and it's okay. It's the art by Riley Rossmo is really nice. I enjoyed this probably the most. The story itself, you know, it's like this first issue where the meeting of the heroes, the confrontation is the tension is being built up towards this confrontation, and yeah, not a lot happens. Well, a lot does happen, but not the important thing. It's just a preparation. It's a prologue. And yeah, like I said, the art is good. The rest, I didn't really care. Well, this was a fun book, Bane Conquest, by Mr. Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon wrote and Graham Nolan penciled this book. It's a maxi series of 12 issues, and Chuck Dixon is mainly responsible. I think he is also the creator of Bane, but if not, he's mainly responsible for, you know, the whole Nightfall story, and so it's a logical thing to get him to write Bane, and Bane is written here like the protector of Gotham, which was kind of weird. I wasn't aware that he's a protector of Gotham, but yeah, it's really well written. It's fast paced. It's, you know, the rhythm is really good, and it's hitting all the right notes, and I had a lot of fun. It's just a very classical. It feels like a classic superhero book, and I was thinking, wow, I really want to have like this kind of book, maybe like a Punisher kind of book on a regular basis, which is just like straight, you know, no bullshit, no blah blah blah, no, not a lot of talk, just like stuff happening all the time. And yeah, it was fun. I had fun with it. I'm thinking about subscribing it, but again, it's like $4, so 4 times 12, it's almost like $50 for one series in 1 year. It's a lot of money. So yeah, regarding money, don't forget to check out my eBay page. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for taking interest in my channel still, and I really hope to get it you know, to release on a more regular basis. I had done some videos. I had technical difficulties with some, and some were like content wise not super good, but now I'm trying to increase my output. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. See you the next time. Bye bye.